But this is something that God spoke to me a few weeks ago that I just really felt I wanted to share today. And it's Psalms 46 verse 5. And the verse says in the KJV, God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. He shall help her, and that right early. And it's one of those verses again that you read time and time again, like you know really well. But for the first time, this really leapt out at me for the first time last week. And it spoke to me about a couple of things. Well, the first thing, God is in the midst of her. Some of the other versions say God is within her. And that really just spoke to me about everything I do is in the power of God. Everything I do as an anointed, as part of the body of Christ, as a part of the anointed one. And that means that anything I put my hand to will prosper. God is really within me. So I don't need to worry about any decisions I have to make, any fears, any doubts. Nothing is impossible because I am a child of God and God is within me. And the second bit, she shall not be moved. It just spoke to me of that, the story of the man who built his house on the sand versus the rock. And it just really spoke to me of being unmovable, unshakable. Some versions say she shall not fall. And it's just that when your house is built, when your foundation is Christ, and your life is built on Christ who's God, we are unstoppable, we are unmovable, we don't change like the weather, we're not swayed, we don't hop from one thing to another, moved by the next best thing. Trends in the world are currently changing, and actually it's saying in this verse that we know who we are because we've got Christ in us, and we know who we are in Christ, and therefore we're not buffeted about by every wave of the wind, every storm that comes doesn't shake us, we are unmovable. And then the second half of the verse says, he shall help her, and that right early. And I just love shall. That means like he is going to, like definitely he is going to help us. God is our help. And then it says, and that right early. And it got me thinking about the definition of early. And if you look in the Collins or the Cambridge version, it says that, or Google it, as we do these days, early really speaks of getting somewhere before the time that's expected, or doing something before the expected time, ahead of when is required. And it just really resonated that actually God doesn't just help us, he is early to help us. He leaves before he even has to. He's making a way, he's going ahead of us, making ways, straightening paths, lowering mountains, raising up valleys, also that when we get there, we can just walk down a straight road with unobstructed paths. And isn't that great that we have a God that is just ahead of us, fixing things, working things out for our good? And that's why it goes on to say in the latter part of the chapter in verse 10 that all we need to do then, knowing that God is within us, knowing that God is our help, knowing that he is going to help us and he's going to be early to help us, knowing that we are unmovable because God is within us, all we need to do is just be still and know that God is God, because God will be exalted. So we'll never fail because God will be exalted in all that we do. How easy does that make our job? Just to be still, rest, and be obedient to whatever he says. So I hope this blesses you today, and I hope you share it with someone else so that they can be blessed too. See you tomorrow.